dollar. Dirt and money, no soul. Had to go and get it, ain't no time to kick it. Got a stack of flip for my foes. Dollar. Please tell me you can hear me. Don't turn your back and don't neglect me. Just let me know if you need me. Dollar. Let me watch out for my partners. Keep my money long, get my team strong. Let me run away from my problems.
Yup, what's good, original crew? Hey, we back, baby, with more balling. We got top 3 places you can't go. And people win anyways.
They win anyways.
You know, there's got a lot of people who hard-headed, stubborn, gonna do what they want to do, right?
Yep.
So, you know what Mama always said? A hard make a soft.
That's what she said.
The old folks always say, a hard head make a soft ass. So, a hard head can make a dead soul. I didn't say that, did I?
Okay, let's get into it.
Let's go. With that being said, make sure you check out the links in the description box.
Down below.
You already know where to go if you want to first support. All you gotta do is check out down below. Also, if you enjoyed today's video,
like it with a thumbs up.
But that's true though. You can be hard-headed and not like, and sometimes people be stubborn and hard-headed to their own, you know what I'm saying? Their own intuition. So their intuition is telling them no, but they body.
Okay, yeah.
You acting like I said something wrong.
I ain't saying nothing.
All right,
I'm just
man.
like, yeah, let's just, get into it.
Don't do me. All right, baby. Let's go ahead. Let's get into it. Let's check it out. Let's see what it's about. Let's see what Ballen got for us, man.
Today, we're going to look at 3 places you can't go and people who went there anyways. But before we get into today's stories, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place because that's all we do and we upload 2 or 3 times every week. So if that's of interest to you, the next time the like button asks you to be a reference on their job application, say yes, and when the company calls you, proceed to tell them how unqualified and terrible the like button is. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. All right, let's get into today's stories. On Friday, August 21st, 2020, 58-year-old Aristides Polino was driving back to his home in Miami, Florida in his police SUV after completing a midnight shift. Aristides was a 25-year veteran of the Miami police force, and over the last 2+ decades, he had routinely done midnight shifts, so this was nothing new. When he got to his house, he parked his SUV in the driveway, and like always, he went right into his house. He didn't talk to his wife Clara or his son. He just went straight up to his bedroom and immediately fell asleep. About 4 hours later, at 5 p.m., Aristides woke up, and he expected to hear his wife's voice somewhere in the house. So when he didn't, and the house was just totally silent, something told him that something was off. So he climbed out of bed, he put on his clothes, and he went downstairs to look for his wife. When he got down to the living room, he saw his son sitting on the couch, but he didn't see his wife. And so he asked his son, hey, have you seen your mom? And he would say, no, I haven't seen her. But sensing on his dad's face that something was wrong, he said, hey, I'll help you look for mom. And so the 2 men began searching the house, yelling out for Clara, and Aristides began calling his wife, but she wasn't picking up. And after several minutes, the 2 men reconvened in the living room, and they started going over whether or not she had told them about some appointment that day, and that would explain why she wasn't in the house. But after talking about it, they decided that she didn't have any appointments and she should be home right now. And so the men decided, maybe she went outside and she's talking to a neighbor, or, she went for a walk and she's talking to somebody on the road. And so they decided they would go outside and search the outside of the property. When they got outside, Aristides went towards the back of the property and his son went towards the front, down towards the driveway. And so as Aristides is making his way around the back of the property, he hears his son scream out for help. Aristides comes running back around the property and he sees his son standing in the driveway with the door of his police SUV wide open. 4 hours earlier, after Aristides came home, he parked his police SUV right in the driveway like he always did, and for some reason he left the car unlocked. And so he goes in the house and he falls asleep. And while he was sleeping, Clara, who was home, she exited the house and walked down the driveway to his SUV. She opened up the door and went inside. It's believed she was looking for something, although we don't know what she was looking for. And while she was in the back of his car fishing around for whatever it was she was looking for, the door she had entered the vehicle in shut behind her. And because this is a police SUV, the back seat was designated for suspects. And so the back two doors did not open from the inside. And there was a very thick partition separating the back seat from the front seat. So Clara could not just reach over the seats and honk the horn to get someone's attention. And Clara did not have her cell phone, so she couldn't call anyone for help. And when she screamed out for help to somebody out on the road to help her, her screams were severely muffled, and the back windows of this police car were heavily tinted, making it extremely difficult to see that there was a person in the back seat of this car. So for 4 hours, Clara desperately screamed and kicked and punched and did everything she could to try to free herself from the situation she was in. All the while, the temperature inside the car continued to go up. The SUV was parked in full sunlight, no shade whatsoever, and the temperatures that day were over 90 degrees Fahrenheit. And so by the time Clara was ultimately discovered, the inside of that SUV had effectively become an oven. Aristides ran over to his vehicle and he pulled his wife out and he started doing CPR on her, but it was too late. She had died of heat stroke. Her death was ultimately ruled an accident.
Wow.
That is unbelievable, bro. Because you always hear, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, kids being left in the car, you know, and died from heat. You don't never really hear about adults, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, you don't never hear stories of like, and I guess a situation like this would be, like, different because she did get in the back seat and it's the, damn. So at 1 o'clock, damn, and she went out at some of the hottest times of the day. Because it was 5 p.m. when he, you know, so it's 1 p.m. when she gets in there. So between 1 and 5. Damn. That's crazy, bro.
That is crazy.
And going out like that.
Facts.
Like, as a grown-up, like heat suffocation type. You know what I'm saying? Like, just imagine, bro. And you can't escape. You know, like, damn, bro.
Facts.
I ain't gonna hold you. I'm kicking. Well, and to be honest, with her kicking and screaming, could have sped up the process too. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Because your body's now is overworking itself trying
panicking on top of the heat and all of that.
Yeah. So, but I've seen people kick them damn windows out of them patrol cars though. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, shit, you better get on that crackhead. You know what I'm saying, to make light of the situation, but it is a fortunate situation. Bad way.
Yeah, it's definitely like a horrible way to go out.
I can't fathom to imagine that though. Damn.
On May 22nd, 2021, a father and his young son were out for a walk in their small suburban town just outside of Barcelona, Spain. When they reached their downtown, they were going to turn around and walk back home, but the boy pleaded with his father to make a quick stop at the old theater. The reason the boy and many other kids in the town loved going to this old theater was because out front of it was this huge papier-mâché statue of a dinosaur, a stegosaurus to be exact. And so after a little bit of convincing, the father finally agrees and they start heading in that direction. After they turned the corner and could actually see the dinosaur statue, the boy took off running while the father just stayed back and walked leisurely, watching his son the whole time. And as he's watching his son, he can see he gets right up to the statue, and then the boy just kind of suddenly stops and stares at something on the bottom of the statue. And so the father notices his son has seen something peculiar enough to make him stop and stare, and so he yells to his son, "Hey, what do you see?" And the son just points at the back right leg of the statue. And so the father thinks this is really weird, so he jogs up to his son and he crouches down right next to him and looks in the direction his son is pointing. And at first, the father believes all his son is pointing at is this fairly obvious crack on the outside of the statue on the back right leg. And he's thinking his son has just noticed that the statue is kind of falling apart. But as he's looking at this crack that his son is pointing at, he realized his son was not pointing at the crack. He was pointing at what was behind the crack, what was inside the dinosaur statue. And when the father realized what he was looking at, he grabbed his son, stood up, and ran in the other direction and called emergency services. A few minutes later, the police and fire department show up in front of this old theater. They get out and they go up to the statue and they confirm what's inside this back right leg. Afterwards, they go to their trucks and they get out chainsaws. Eventually, they were able to carve a big enough square on this back right leg that they were able to remove the thing that the father and the son had seen originally, and that was a dead man's body. Not much is known about this dead man, except that he was a 39-year-old man who his family had reported missing a couple of days before he was actually found. While we don't know this for sure, it's believed he decided to crawl inside the statue when he realized the belly of the dinosaur was movable. Now, it's not entirely clear how he figured that out. Either the belly was already moved and he saw the opening and so saw the opportunity to crawl inside for some reason, or he was poking and prodding at the statue and discovered the belly was movable, moved it aside, and then again seized the opportunity and crawled inside. But either way, the man crawled inside the statue, and then once he was in the dinosaur, his phone slipped out of his hand or slipped out of his pocket, and then instead of falling out of the dinosaur onto the ground, it fell inside the dinosaur and slid down the inside of the statue until it fell into the bottom of the bottom right-hand leg. And so the man decides to go after his phone, and so on his belly, he slides over to the back right leg, and then he begins lowering himself head first into the leg, reaching for his phone. And so as he's kind of slowly lowering himself down, using his legs to pin himself inside the statue, he gets closer and closer, and he's almost about to grab his phone when his feet lose their grip, and he slips and falls headfirst all the way to the bottom of this back right leg. The space he was in was so tight, he was not able to turn himself around and climb up and out again. In fact, it was so tight, he could barely move. His arms were pinned by his side, and so he couldn't use them to even push himself back up and out. And because he could not bend his legs, he could not use his legs to pull himself back out again either. And so this man most likely began screaming for help, but for whatever reason, nobody heard him. And so after what must have been several agonizing days, the man finally just died. His autopsy has not been made public, so we don't know for sure what actually killed him, although one could speculate he died of either dehydration or perhaps asphyxia from being trapped in this really tight space where his chest may not have been able to expand all the way, and so he would have eventually suffocated. Following the gruesome discovery, the dinosaur statue was removed from the front of the old theater.
Damn, bro.
Yeah.
You feel like it should have been removed?
Possibly just to
Safety.
prevent, for safety.
Or, well, they probably have the opening there so they can go in and clean it and keep it preserved. You know what I'm saying? Where they can be able to access the inside.
Yeah, but like with having that, people see the opportunity to get inside, and then maybe next time it'll be, a child to try to climb inside and get stuck. Just anyone.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? So
yeah, because I was like, you could have just welded shut. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And nobody else can be able to get inside, and it prevents it from ever happening again.
Yeah.
But then now it becomes a memorial, and everybody
everyone.
now it's a tourist attraction because everybody know about the story. We're gonna go, and so just to kind of, I guess, you know what I'm saying. But it's still
that, and then
prevent it from ever happening again, because even if you weld it shut, some people know how to even still like, hey, this is how. And then you have other dodo birds who want to, you know what I'm saying, do the same shit. And it's just, the best thing would have been to do is just remove it. I feel sorry for the guy. But it's like, dude, like, what was you thinking?
I do wonder, like, what made him go inside.
You 39, bro. You should.
Regardless of that, because I don't know what was going on, like, with him. But I do wonder, like, what made him go inside, Like, what was the reasoning for it, or whatever the case. So, even if you've seen the opportunity, like you said, you are older, but I don't know what was going on, like mentally or anything. Like, what was going on. Or did you just like, hey, I want to go here? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know.
But if you are a 39-year-old male in the right mindset, like, you shouldn't have known better.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, all the risks, like, it should click in your head, oh, this is off limits. Let me not, But, hey, to each his own, man. Everybody don't think that way, but,
But yeah, that's a bad way to definitely go out too.
In the early 1980s, John Harder was the classic, athletic, popular kid at his high school in Delaware, Ohio, which is a relatively small town just outside of the state's capital. But unlike most stereotypes that paint high school jocks as being these total jerks that bully people and they're kind of stupid, John was none of those things. He was incredibly friendly and very warm-hearted and seemed to get along with everyone. John also was known for having a great sense of humor. In particular, he liked to play these kind of harmless pranks that would make people smile, like the time he very enthusiastically joined the cheerleaders during a high school pep rally, despite not actually being a cheerleader himself. John was set to graduate from high school on June 5th, 1983, and his plan was to study accounting at Kent State University the following year. A few weeks before his graduation, John's high school began selling these tickets to a grad night at a huge amusement park called Kings Island. Kings Island was located about 2 hours west of John's high school, and it was home to dozens of roller coasters, water slides, and many other attractions. During their so-called grad nights, this amusement park would shut down their public operations and not let anybody into the park that did not have these special student tickets that they gave to local area high schools. John, who was 17 years old at the time, was very excited at the idea of going to this grad night, and so he went and purchased tickets along with about 20 other students from his high school. At about 3:30 p.m. on Friday, May 13th, John and the other students who had bought grad night tickets met up outside of their high school. While this was a school-sponsored trip, the students were responsible for driving themselves to the park. And so after all the students were accounted for, they all piled into a couple of their cars and they began their journey to the park. After a few stops along the way to get food and go to the bathroom, the students finally arrived at the park at about 7 p.m. And on the drive, John, who had been a passenger, had drank half a bottle of rum and about 3 to 6 beers. And so when he got out, he could barely stand. He was so drunk. And so the students made their way over to the front gate. They showed the attendant their grad night ticket, and they were allowed inside. And surprisingly, despite it being this special night where only people with these tickets were allowed in, it was still pretty crowded. There were lots of students that apparently wanted to come to this event. Once John and the rest of...
Should you have somebody up there, like, paying attention, you know what I'm saying? I would have, like, you know what I'm saying? Like somebody just, like a principal or teacher, watching the entrance, you know what I'm saying, making sure, you know, especially down here, you would have a nosy ass teacher or principal at the trying to make, because if I notice a student coming in that sloppy drunk,
yeah,
ain't no way you getting in. You gonna go over there and sit, you know what I'm saying? We gonna call your parents, get your parents here.
Yeah.
Because, you know.
But I guess if so many people are entering, like, at the same time, it's hard to kind of, like.
But I'm just saying, watching demeanor. Like, if he barely can even walk, you know.
No, I get that.
Several beers and a half a bottle of rum. That's a lot.
Especially for
17-year-old?
Yeah, I'm thinking about the time.
But you remember, bro, like, you know, people used to get drunk back when we was 17.
Yeah. I guess, yeah.
You told me about them times y'all used to go off in the woods. So quit acting like, you know what I'm saying? We ain't do that when we
I didn't say that. I said, yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Y'all used to go out and party.
You ain't gotta be telling my business. I wasn't drinking, y'all.
And surprisingly, despite it being this special night where only people with these tickets were allowed in, it was still pretty crowded. There were lots of students that apparently wanted to come to this event. Once John and the rest of the students from the Delaware High School had come inside the park, there was no rule that they had to stick together for the duration of their time there, and so they all kind of broke into their separate groups and went their separate ways. In John's particular group was his girlfriend Pam, and for the first hour they were in the park together, all they did was bicker and fight. Onlookers would say John looked visibly upset and very emotional and very drunk. By 8:30 p.m., when John's group had gotten in line for this roller coaster, John was now openly saying, I don't want to be here anymore, I just want to go home. It was pretty obvious he was still just mad at Pam, and that's why he was saying all this, was just trying to make Pam feel bad. And so some of the group members told John, just, hey man, calm down, you're overreacting, just try to enjoy this ride, and then afterwards we'll get some food, it'll be fine. But it was pretty clear that John was really worked up and seemed incapable of having a good time at this point. But regardless, John and the rest of the group, they got on this ride ride at about 9 p.m. And then after the ride was over, they disembarked and they walked away from the ride to regroup and figure out what was next. And they're looking around and John is nowhere to be found. And so after waiting for a few minutes and actually walking around looking for him, they decided that, you know what, he was really upset before he got on this ride. He probably just wanted to walk away and be by himself for a bit. I'm sure we'll see him later in the night. So John's group, without John, just continued going around the park, going on different rides. And for the next few hours, they kind of forgot about John. It wasn't until the end of the night when over the loudspeaker, the park officials said, okay, we're closing the park now, that they started walking out and wondering where John was. And they were convinced, you know what, I'm sure he's back at the cars. He's probably waiting for us because he just wants to go home. So they leave the park, they get out to their cars in the lot, and John's not there. And so at this point, the group's starting to get a little bit concerned because no one knows where he is. They're meeting up with the other groups from their high school. No one's seen John. And so they're all just kind of staring at the front gate, waiting for John to come out, but he doesn't. And then eventually the lights in the park start shutting down and the security guard comes out front and locks the front gate. And that's when the group knew they had a problem. After an extensive investigation by police, this is their best guess as to what happened to John. After John and his small group rode that roller coaster around 9 p.m., John very quickly disembarked the ride before anybody else in his group could see him. And then John stumbled his way towards the replica Eiffel Tower that this park was famous for. This tower stood at about 300 feet tall and was built to be an exact replica of the Eiffel Tower in Paris, France. But this one at Kings Island was only a third the size. It had 3 elevators that went up the center of the structure, and the elevators would stop at a 50-foot platform and a 275-foot platform where guests could look out and have a great view of the park. While today, the only way to access these 2 viewing platforms is through these elevators, at the time John was at the park in 1983, the park actually had a flight of stairs that went from the ground all the way to the very top of the tower that went right up the middle of the structure, and the public was allowed to take these stairs all the way up to the first platform, that 50-foot platform. And while the stairs did actually continue beyond that, up to the 275-foot platform, the public was not allowed to go any higher on the stairs than that first platform. And so if you took these stairs, once you got to the 50-foot platform, there would be a big fence right on the stairwell preventing you from going any farther. And it says authorized personnel only, don't go any farther. And so the only people that would walk up those additional flights of stairs were staff that had a special key. When John stumbled his way over to the base of this replica tower, he did not get on an elevator. Instead, he took the stairs. So he made his way up to the 50-foot platform. And then when he got to this 6-foot tall gate preventing him from going any farther, he just climbed up and over it and continued walking up the stairs, and nobody stopped him. He finally came to a stop just below the 275-foot mark. And so he's on the stairwell. And at this point, he turns and faces the inside of the tower. It's all these metal beams all over the place. And he climbs over the railing of the stairs he's on, and he climbs onto this narrow beam that's actually a part of the support.
Oh no.
Hell no. This stuff.
And then okay.
No, go.
I was about to say, and then he's already like, upset, intoxicated, not really,
He in his right mind, bro.
He's just like, I don't want to be
moving
around.
in frustration. Because that alcohol intensifies things too.
Yeah, and then he was arguing, which he probably was arguing because of the alcohol. I don't know.
Or did he get drunk because of the whatever?
But dang.
I just don't hope. I'm hoping not what I'm thinking. Because what I'm thinking, I'm like, hell no.
Yeah.
Can't be. Of the stairs he's on, and he climbs onto this narrow beam that's actually a part of the support structure of this tower, and he grabs onto the beam above him and just begins walking along this beam towards the center of the tower where the 3 elevator shafts are. Now, there's no safety net on either side of John, so if he slips and falls, he's falling hundreds of feet to the ground. And if he keeps walking and actually gets into the elevator shaft, there's nothing protecting him from being struck by one of the elevators, because the people who built this tower However, we're not thinking about people walking on these exposed beams hundreds of feet up into the air. This is a totally dangerous and unauthorized area. But John just continues shimmying across this beam until he does get to the middle of the tower, and now he's literally standing looking down into the elevator shafts. And as he's most likely looking around, admiring where he was, one of the elevator cars below him began to start moving. To understand what happens next, you need to have a rudimentary understanding of how this elevator worked. A large metal rope was attached to the top of the elevator car, and from there it was thread up the elevator shaft all the way to the top, where it was fed through a pulley that was anchored to the ceiling, and then that rope was fed right back down the shaft to the bottom, where it was attached to a counterweight. A counterweight is just a large heavy weight that's designed to balance this elevator car on this pulley system. Without the weight, the elevator car would just slip off of that pulley. And so anytime the elevator car moved up, the counterweight would move down and vice versa, making sure that car was always balanced. And so John is standing right on the edge of this elevator shaft, presumably just kind of looking around, admiring where he was, when down below him, that elevator car starts to move, and it starts to actually descend away from John. And so the car itself is not necessarily a threat to John. However, its counterweight is, because if the car is going down, its counterweight is going up, and it's right in the path of John. And so as John is leaning out over the shaft looking around, this counterweight comes screaming up and picks him off of the beam he's on and carries him up into the shaft. The impact on John was so strong that it's believed he was actually impaled on some of the exposed metal wiring on top of this counterweight, and he got totally tangled up in all of the cables on top of there. And so as John is desperately trying to free himself, the elevator operator, there was always a staff member inside of these elevator cars, he actually noticed when John got stuck on the counterweight. But of course, this worker would have no idea that's what it was. They would later recall it just felt like the car suddenly jumped. And so this worker, fearing that something had gone wrong with the elevator car itself, he decided he would ride it all the way to the bottom, let everybody get out, and then ride back up to the top totally empty to make sure that the car actually worked before allowing people back on. And so the worker went to the ground, everybody got out, he closed the doors, he began his ascent. He got to that first platform at 50 feet, no issues. He got about 10 feet above that first platform, so at about 60 feet, when all of a sudden he hears an unbelievably loud thud on the roof of his elevator car, causing his car to immediately come to a stop. And then blood began pouring over the sides of the car over the windows. After getting stuck on the counterweight, John probably did everything he could to try to free himself, but he just couldn't do it. However, when that elevator worker decided to go back up again to test the capacity of the elevator car, it reversed the direction of the counterweight that John was stuck on. And so as that car was going up, John began going down, and it was on this descent that parts of John's body must have been dangling off of this counterweight, and they must have struck one of the beams as he was going down, and that beam effectively pried him off of whatever he was stuck on and threw him over the edge into the center of the shaft. And so John would fall 200 feet and he would land on top of that elevator car, dying instantly. The park was very quick to block off the ride and the whole scene and got police involved very quickly. So only a very small number of guests and employees were aware an accident had even happened, and very few of them were aware that it had been a fatal accident. As for the police, they knew they had a dead body, but they had no way to identify the body. There was no ID cards on John, and so they had no way to let his friends know that were in the park or to tell his family. And so it wasn't until that night, when John's friends are out in the parking lot waiting for John to come out again, that they got really worried, and they went up and spoke to a security guard at the front of the park. And that security guard, after hearing their story, would tell them that actually there had been an accident in the park and there was a body, and the police are still trying to identify this body. And so maybe you guys want to go over to the hospital and see if it's your friend. So sure enough, the friends went to the hospital, and they would confirm that the body was John Harder. To this day, no one knows for sure why John did what he did. Some say he was just drunk and it was a dumb decision that led to his death. Others say he was suicidal, but many of the people that were close to him say, no way, he was not suicidal. And other people say, John, he loved attention, and so perhaps this was a dangerous stunt gone too far. But regardless of his reasons, John had clearly intentionally entered an area that was off limits, and it got him killed. So that's going to do it, guys. If you found the secret in today's episode, let us
What?
Sad
No,
story, man.
that's super sad.
That's probably one of the most horrible ways to go out. Like, your last moments like that, you know?
And I always be like, I always wonder, like, I can only imagine, like, what goes through people's head, you know, when, like, situations, like, especially, like, something like this, like, I can only imagine, like, what's going through his head.
Bro, I wouldn't even want that. Like, you know how you be like, I want wish this on my
worst enemy.
Nah, like that. Hell nah.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care who you is, whatever you done. I don't think nobody deserves no shit like that. That's painful, you know. Mm-hmm. And one detail that I was like, what the fuck? Mm-hmm. Like, it's the fact that y'all had a dead body on y'all hand, right? Mm-hmm. And y'all still allow people to be in the park and allow things to go on. And, like, people didn't know about it when they left out. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, you gotta... You get what I'm saying? Like, they were still at the park for a little while, like, a couple hours later.
I mean, well, I guess at the end of the day, that situation was off from the park, so it was unrelated to people on rides and things of that nature. You don't want to cause no alarm, and then you have people gravitating. Like, that can cause a lot of issues.
But think about it. If you at a park, right, mm-hmm. and you just, you know what I'm saying, you there enjoying yourself, and somebody died, like a gruesome death like that, you just, like, we still turning up for about 3 hours, then you leave, and then you go home, and the news will be like, oh, such and such died. And say, for instance, you was with somebody, and that person was dead. And you like, what the you will feel some type of way, though.
I mean, I will feel some type of way, but also, I'm going to look at it.
Because I look at it, reason why I'm saying that is because I look at it like this. Not to interrupt you, but a lot of business like that is coming from a selfish point. Because they like, hey, we don't want to alarm anyone and have people leave and we lose money. So a lot of things, like, not even just the theme parks, mm-hmm. a lot of businesses like that just say, hey, keep that situation isolated. Don't let the news go out. Allow people to keep enjoying themselves because they want the money to keep coming in.
No, I get that. And in a lot of situations that does happen. I mean, but we can't say if that was this case or if it was just a thing because, like he said, not even all the employees, like, you know, some employees knew, not even everyone even knew, employees included. It was just a few employees, that person that was on the ride, that was working the elevator, the police, and maybe a couple other employees, but
what I'm saying is, you could have said, like, y'all get on the intercom, told everybody, hey, we finally closed. Just say, hey, due to emergencies, situations, we're shutting the park down early.
They definitely could have done
and
that.
We having to, and then I would have tried, because somebody had to know, been over the organization of grad night, right? Yeah. So you have an administrative contact. Well, it's 1983, so you want.
And I'm thinking about that too. I'm thinking about the times. Like, if something like right now happened, most definitely. But I always try to take into consideration the time it was in, like when it was. But I do agree with you. I mean, they possibly could have done it. I don't even know what the time frame is when that happened, and then when they shut the park down. Yeah. I don't even know how long.
Obviously, the park was still going on for him. Was still giving people rides up and down.
Yeah. Like, it was still going on. But I'm just saying, I don't know the time frame in between the park closing and the police being there. I guess it had to be a little minute because they ended up transporting his body to the hospital. So
and you got to think about it. That happened not too long after they got off the ride. Mm-hmm. It probably was about 20-30 minutes after. They stayed there at the park a couple of hours still.
I mean, I agree with you. A lot of, in situations like that, it could have been just that, or they felt like, okay, this situation is not related technically in their eyes to what happened. Like, it wasn't on a ride that caused it. It was like, you know, this
isolated situation.
You know, so they probably thinking about it like that. But I do agree, it could be selfish and they just wanted to continue to make money or whatever the case may be. Or
I just think it could have been handled a lot better than it was, because then you got to think about his friends. They sat there wait all night, and then the sad part about it, they are the ones who have to identify the body, and not even the parents. And so, how can you really want to identify a body that's possibly been dismembered the way, or smushed away.
It certainly is traumatizing. And then also for his parents to even have to travel 2 hours to get to him, because they were 2 hours away from the city they stayed in. So that in itself is sad, and like I can only imagine what's going through their heads on the ride there, like to get to their son.
Then you think about it, he really didn't even enjoy his last moments here on Earth.
Yeah, because he
thought he was by turning up, but then you had a whole argument that just ruined your night, and then that was the last things. So just imagine his girlfriend Pam. Mm-hmm. At the time, you gotta imagine her grief from after the fact. Like we didn't our last moments together
was arguing.
Were arguing, like, and that's the reason why people
and no telling what was even
people be like honestly
to what degree the argument was.
Yeah, cherish the moments you have with someone. Like no matter whatever you go through, you can always get through it. Especially if it's just a little simple petty argument or something or disagreement. Ain't no reason to linger on to something, because any moment y'all good, hour later they gone. You didn't expect that at 17.
Facts.
And sad. To go out the way he go out.
That's so
and
sad.
Then y'all are the ones who have to identify the body.
Yeah.
That is that fucks you up for the rest of your life.
And then I always think about when situations like this happen, because it's so tragic, and then to go just alone. You know what I'm saying? Literally, you know what I'm saying? Like, I know in a lot of situations, people you came in this world alone, you go die alone, whatever the case may be. But it's just to the degree that was, cause it's so
how
tragic.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, I don't know.
Nobody hearing you if you was screaming or anything, and you whatever how the situation was when you were going up, you probably screaming for help or anything. Nobody's hearing you. All of these situations,
all of them, yeah.
You went out literally in fear of your life, and no one is able to hear you.
No one's
able to respond to you, and you're panicking. And all of these, you literally see yourself dying.
In your head, you're okay, this is it.
Because think about the first one. Mm-hmm. She's trapped in her husband's car.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing my husband's inside. My son is in the inside. It's in the afternoon.
In the broad daylight, no one hears me. The car is right here. That's sad.
And then the other guy, you're in front of a movie theater. And you get trapped upside down. Mm-hmm. And no matter what I do, I can't bang because my arms are, I can't, I really can't.
Even if I scream, the way I'm facing, it will be probably muffled 9 times out of 10.
And honestly, in that situation, personally, I would hope he didn't live too long through that suffering, especially days.
Yeah.
Because that's even worse to suffer for days like that.
That is.
Now, if it was a little faster, all right, I'm dead. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna, but her, even with her, you screaming, kicking for help, I know somebody gonna hear me. Somebody gonna hear something. And then for her son to find her.
Right.
For her son to find her and go through that, damn.
That it is sad. All of these situations are sad.
Even the little boy seeing the dead body, pointing out.
Oh yeah.
Now he has to go through to help that get out of his head.
Facts.
So all this shit.
Yeah, that's trauma in itself, child. Cause I'd be like, what?
All these situations, bro, are just mind-boggling. But the last one, bro, I don't know. It just did something to me, man.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I was thinking, I do agree with you as far as maybe they could have handled it different, or maybe just shut down the park.
But like you said, I'm thinking about the time.
I'm thinking, but again, it's the time. And then I'm thinking I kind of not being like that, but what would they have done though?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because from the sounds of it, he was already, deceased on scene. So,
but I'm just it's fucked up that other people just go about.
Yeah, but that is you think about that, dang, I was there.
I was there,
I'm having the time of my life.
Think about the people who were just on the ride.
You know what I'm saying?
They damn, that's what that was.
Literally
somebody
on the ride,
killed.
and someone is that's sad. And like you said, it is sad because, I know that's life or whatever, but, people have the time of their life when things are going on around you. You don't even, know or realize, dang, that's what happened. I was just there. I was in that same part. I didn't know that, I don't know.
That's the sadness of it.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff, man. It's just the fact that you damn, I was just there.
Yeah.
Damn, that could have happened to anybody, bro.
Yeah.
But, hey, man, make sure y'all spam us up in the comments.
Please do.
Y'all let us know y'all thoughts about all of these in the comment section down below, man. But as always, y'all know how it goes. I do go by the name DJ Kid and Sis. We are y'all.
Go and get it, ain't no time to kick it. Got a stack of flip for my folks. Dollar, 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 dollar. Please tell me you can hear me. Don't turn your back and don't neglect me. Just let me know if you need